Here is the story of a one-of-a-kind Le Mans raced Ferrari built by America's most famous Ferrari team, and its devoted Ferrari collector owner who has been driving Ferraris on racetracks for 43 years. On this very special episode of the Track-Dedicated Lifestyle presented by Racetrack Retreats, we share the story of the Ferrari 365 GT4 BB built by Luigi Cinetti's North American racing team and the car's owner Bob Coates. Three-time 24 Hours of Le Mans winner Luigi Cinetti opened the first Ferrari dealership in the United States in New York City's Manhattan in 1954. Cinetti was the sole importer of Ferraris to the United States for years, and he was known for being forthright with what he thought about you. If he didn't like you, you didn't get a Ferrari. Cinetti created the North American Racing Team in 1958, a privateer endurance racing team that would champion some of the most iconic Ferrari race cars in history and advance the image of Ferrari worldwide through such racing successes as winning the 1965 24 Hours of Le Mans in a NART-entered Ferrari 250 LM. The North American Racing Team Ferrari race car we're exploring in this episode didn't begin its life as a factory-built race car like the Ferrari 512 BBLM. Rather, serial number 18139 began as a road-going 1974 Ferrari 365 GT4 BB. The 365 GT4 BB was revealed at the 1971 Turin Auto Show and was the first rear-engine 12-cylinder road-going Ferrari production car. It sported a longitudinally mounted 4.4-liter flat 12 with a 5-speed manual transmission mounted under the engine. The 365 GT4 BB had a tubular steel space frame reinforced by steel panels around the cockpit. The wedge-shaped nose was derived from the 1968 Pininfarina P6 concept car, and the GT4 BB had 6 rear taillights and 6 exhaust pipes. Yielding roughly 380 horsepower, the 365 GT4 BB had a top speed of 186 miles per hour. The Ferrari 365 GT4 BB began being sold in 1973, and ultimately only 387 were produced. While some of these cars were modified to street legal spec, the 365 GT4 BB was never street legal in the United States in its factory form. This particular 365 GT4 BB, serial number 18139, was actually used by Ferrari as a show car in Torino as a production boxer before being delivered to Luigi Cinetti's North American Racing Team in Greenwich, Connecticut on November 30th, 1974, becoming the first 365 GT4 BB imported to the United States. The very next day, NART started modifying this Ferrari with the goal of racing it in the 24 Hours of Daytona just a few weeks later. NART manager Dick Fritz and NART mechanics Francois Sicard and Noreo Iori transformed serial number 18139 into a race car, with Bob Craig rewiring the whole car and father and son bodywork team Randy and Tony Randazzo doing the extensive body modifications. Luigi Cinetti's North American Racing Team modified this Ferrari 365 GT4 BB's chassis to be stronger and lighter, and they modified the exhaust pipes to increase power from the 4.4-liter flat 12. IMSA allowed NART's request to do a potentially dangerous modification of moving the fuel cell to the passenger compartment because the racing series wanted to have a Ferrari in it. NART transformed the car from a production boxer to an endurance race car in just 9 weeks, making its race debut at the 24 Hours of Daytona on February 1st, 1975. During practice at Daytona, the right rear hub carrier failed, and it couldn't be fully repaired before the race. NART had a dilemma of whether or not to start the race just to get the start money, knowing they wouldn't be able to finish with the hub carrier issue. NASCAR founder and then IMSA majority owner Bill France told NART that they had to start the race to get the start money. So they started the race, ran one lap, and then retired the car. This car's run at the 75 Daytona 24 marked the first time a Ferrari Berlinetta boxer was ever raced. The North American Racing Team installed new Koni shocks on their Ferrari 365 GT4 BB for the second race of the 1975 IMSA season at Sebring, where they also replaced the clutch before the race and alternator during the race. At Sebring, the car had a fire during refueling that fortunately was quickly extinguished by the fire system that Dick Fritz had installed on the car. The number 111 365 GT4 BB finished 6th overall in the 1975 12 Hours of Sebring, behind a BMW 3-liter CSL and 4 Porsche 911 RSRs. However, Canadian driver Appy Wietzes did win a 1-hour race that same weekend in this NART Ferrari. In the next IMSA race at Road Atlanta, a rear hub carrier failed before the race, just as it did at the car's race debut at Daytona. However, this time the NART 365 GT4 BB never started the race. In the May 1975 IMSA race at Lime Rock Park, the North American racing team's Ferrari 365 GT4 BB was engulfed in flames when the driver spun off course and flooded the engine while trying to restart it, resulting in raw fuel being dumped into the exhaust system, which then caught fire when the engine restarted, ending their race. This race at Lime Rock would ultimately be the final race for the number 111 Berliner Boxer under NART ownership. The next month was the 24 Hours of Le Mans, where Luigi Cinetti's NART entered 4 Ferraris, including a Dino 308 GT4. The FIA put the 308 in a higher class that it wouldn't be competitive in, so Luigi Cinetti demanded that the car be reclassed, but to no avail. So in protest, Cinetti withdrew all 4 of his race cars from the 75 24 Hours of Le Mans. Soon thereafter, NART winded down due to financial woes, making this Ferrari 365 GT4 BB the last car NART ever built. NART would continue to race through 1983, but in factory-built race cars like the Ferrari 512 BBLM. Luigi Cinetti used this Ferrari 365 GT4 BB race car as collateral on a bank loan, but the bank called the loan in 1977 and took ownership of this car from Cinetti's North American racing team. While the second owner, Howard O'Flynn, and his bank owned this one-of-a-kind Ferrari built by NART, Cinetti's team still campaigned the car in the 1977 24 Hours of Le Mans. In the paddock at the Circuit de la Sarthe the night before the race, NART mechanics drilled hundreds of holes all throughout the 365 GT4 BB to cut weight, weighing the scraps of metal that they drilled out in a bucket to see how much weight they'd removed. When the car was officially weighed before the start of the race, the other teams who had seen NART drilling into the 365 were so surprised by how much weight they cut out of the car that they started clapping. The car would finish 5th in class and 16th overall in the 1977 24 Hours of Le Mans. For the 1978 24 Hours of Le Mans, Ferrari offered Luigi Cinetti's privateer North American racing team a 4.9-liter flat 12 competition motor, which one of NART's drivers picked up at the Ferrari factory and then drove back to Le Mans the night before the race, just in time for NART to install it in the car. This is the engine that remains in the car now. In both the 1977 and 78 24-hour races, NART's 365 GT4 BB had a nearly 2-hour-long pit stop. In the 1978 race, the quill shaft, part of the transmission, broke with the car far away from pit lane. The rules said that only the driver could repair their car outside of pit lane. However, Tony Randazzo of NART successfully repaired the quill shaft where the number 86 Ferrari stopped just off the racing surface. How did NART get away with this? The car's driver was French, as were the corner workers, who turned a blind eye as Randazzo fixed their compatriots' race car. Despite the long repair, NART's 365 GT4 BB finished 3rd in class and 16th overall, ahead of 3 Ferrari 512 BBLMs, which didn't finish the race. After its final race in the 1978 24 Hours of Le Mans, the Ferrari 365 GT4 BB, built for racing by the North American racing team, traded hands a few times before ending up with its current owner Bob Coates, with listing prices reaching as high as $1 million in 1992. This one-of-a-kind Ferrari is now owned by passionate Ferrari collector and track driver Bob Coates. Bob and his wife Karen have a long affiliation with Ferraris, and specifically legendary Ferrari broker Luigi Cinetti. They would both go to Cinetti's shop as kids, and Luigi would let them get up close to the iconic Ferraris. Bob bought his first Ferrari, a 275 GTS, in 1969, and in 1976 he bought a 1972 365 GTB4 Daytona from Luigi Cinetti, which he still has to this day. He later owned a 512 BB Street Boxer. Bob drove both the Daytona and 512 on racetracks and Ferrari club events, and he has now driven Ferraris on track in hundreds of events spanning over 4 decades. Bob Coates was about to purchase an immaculate Ferrari F40 in 1993, when the thought occurred to him that over 1,200 F40s were made. However, only 25 512 BBLMs were made, a car that Bob had always loved. In searching for a 512 BBLM, he connected with Ferrari dealer Mike Sheehan in California. Mike had 3 BBLMs, but they were already sold. However, Mike mentioned to Bob that he had a race car built by NART. He told Bob that he could see pictures of the 365 GT4 BB NART race car in Cavallino magazine number 49, and Bob realized he already had a history with this unique car. Bob recalls showing his wife Karen a picture of the NART 365 in that edition of Cavallino back in 1989, and saying, "This is how this car was meant to look. Bob bought the 365 GT4 BB race car from Mike Sheehan, and while it was being transported from California, Bob's wife was cleaning and found a projector slide of a picture that Bob took at the 1975 New York Auto Show. It turns out that picture was of the NART race car that Bob would own 18 years later. Right after Bob Coates received delivery of this Ferrari 365 GT4 BB race car, he took it to the track, driving it in a Ferrari Club event at Summit Point Motorsports Park. There were some mechanical issues with the shifter forks being out of alignment. However, Bob Craig of the North American racing team that converted this production Ferrari into a race car was on hand to fix the shifter. By the end of the second day on track, Bob was feeling comfortable with his race car, getting faster each lap before setting consistent lap times. Bob said compared to his previous cars,
it was a beast. It was really overwhelming. I've never driven anything quite like that.
He would go on to drive the NART 365 and Ferrari Historic Challenge races at Lime Rock Park, Palm Beach International Raceway, Road Atlanta, Homestead Miami Speedway, and Watkins Glen. This car became a family outing, with Karen Coates warming up the 365 in the intermediate run group and Bob driving it in advanced. Bob has now driven this iconic Le Mans race car in hundreds of track events. Bob Coates recalls driving his NART-built Ferrari 365 GT4 BB at Pocono Raceway in the early 2010s, when a rear tire was cut on the front straight and it rolled off the wheel in turn 1, a turn he typically takes at 160 miles per hour without braking, but just lifting off the throttle. The tire folded into itself and sent the car into a full spin, rotating multiple times, but fortunately Bob was able to keep it out of the wall, which was no easy task. Another testament to Bob's excellent driving is that he is known for his mastery of heel-toe downshifting. And after riding along with Bob at Pocono, an IndyCar driver actually adopted Bob's approach in one of the corners. Bob was kind enough to take me on a ride at his 1972 Ferrari Daytona, where I noticed he was double clutching every shift, which he says has kept the original transmission in terrific condition, even after over 100,000 miles. Bob is a passionate caretaker for his Ferraris, which currently include the Daytona, a Mondial Cabriolet, a Ferrari California, Dwight Howard's FF, and of course his NART race car. In addition to hundreds of track events, Bob Coates has entered his Ferrari race car and Concord Elegance events, and it appeared on the front lawn at the Cavallino Classic. Bob was the Ferrari Club of America National Track Chairman for 12 years, and he remains the track chairman for the Empire State Region FCA. At 77, Bob is still going strong, driving his NART-built Ferrari on racetracks. He has never missed a single Empire State Region Ferrari Club track event since 1980, and he'll be back on track with this legendary Ferrari at Watkins Glen next month. Having spent some time with Bob Coates and hearing his passion for Ferraris, I can say his story is truly an inspiration to car collectors and track drivers alike. Bob is a true advocate for the history of Luigi Canetti's North American racing team that built this car. He almost never drives it alone on track. There is always a line of people that want to ride with Bob Coates in this one-of-a-kind Ferrari. Luigi Canetti Jr. said it best when he declared, "Bob's the only one out there keeping the NART name alive." Thank you for watching this special episode of the Track Dedicated Lifestyle presented by Racetrack Retreats. If you have a track-only supercar or historically significant race car that you would be willing to let us film for a future episode of TDL, please let us know on the Racetrack Retreats tab of TrackShaker.com. Regular 1-minute episodes of the Track Dedicated Lifestyle launch every day on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Snapchat, all at Racetrack Retreats. If you want to drive your car on a track in track day events, visit TrackShaker.com to get started in the hobby. TrackShaker.com is your ultimate one-stop resource for everything you need to know to participate in any of the 1,500 track day events that happen at 100 racetracks across the United States every year. And if you're looking for the absolute pinnacle track day experience, where you, your friends, car club, or business has a racetrack all to yourself with the most track time, best driving instruction, and most amenities, visit the Racetrack Retreats tab of TrackShaker.com to let us know, and one of our event curators will reach out to you to craft your driving event of a lifetime. We'll see you tomorrow for another tour of the Track Dedicated Lifestyle.